Good evening and welcome to the People's Platform. Sri Lanka has a significant burden of alcohol-related harms, with alcohol consumption responsible for thousands of deaths from non-communicable diseases and injuries each year. Now, a recent survey of nearly 1,000 Sri Lankans across 5 districts found that 73% of Sri Lankans favor alcohol taxation and an increase in the prices of alcohol. Often deprioritized, tonight's discussion will focus on how we must design and implement evidence-based strategies to combat one of our most pressing concerns, alcohol harms. To discuss, we've invited to our studio psychologist and advocate Kristina Spurkova. Good evening and welcome, Kristina.
Good evening. Thank you so much.
Kristina, something that we see in Sri Lanka is the increasing normalization of alcohol consumption, tobacco and drug usage, especially among youth and young adults. Could you speak to us about these trends, especially given the fact that globally this is not the case?
If we look at the global situation, there alcohol is more and more denormalized. So, for example, in Western countries, we really can see that young people are using less and less alcohol.
Okay.
So, I hope that Sri Lanka will also pick up that trend. Sri Lanka is one of the countries that has less alcohol consumption than Western countries, of course. So, it would be really shame if it would be influenced by the old Western habits, while now young people in the Western part of the world are really seeing both the harm caused by alcohol. They see the unethical practices of alcohol industry that they do not want to simply support, and then also they are inclining towards a more healthy lifestyle.
Throughout your work, you work with the World Health Organization, other global members engaged in alcohol prevention. Speak to us about some of the work you do.
So I am doing lots of advocacy work for effective and evidence-based alcohol policies that we really know they change people's lives. They are saving people's lives. And I am going to the United Nations, I am meeting World Health Organization, different governments, ministries of health, but also other ministries, as alcohol is really not only the problem of health ministry, but we can look at education, Ministry of Equality, also Ministry of Finances. So I am meeting with different politicians and decision makers, and we are talking and raising awareness about alcohol harm, and not only about that, but also about what the benefits would be if we would reduce alcohol harm and invest in good prevention.
Mm-hmm. It is widely known that alcohol consumption is directly linked to domestic violence and also household financial strain. Especially in Sri Lanka, this is an issue which the government is grappling to deal with. At a policy level, how do you think this must be addressed?
Alcohol needs to be denormalized through different policies. We really need to change understanding of alcohol, because alcohol might be understood as something that is a problem solver. And it's really the opposite, and through policies we can change it, so there shouldn't be marketing. Even, for example, in Sri Lanka, the marketing of alcohol is not allowed,
yes.
But also from this survey that you have mentioned, we can see that people are still exposed to alcohol, and it's mostly through social and digital media, exposed to alcohol advertisements and marketing. So, for example, that should be really taken care of. Then we can reduce availability of alcohol. It should not be available wherever we go. Alcohol policy, we can, for example, regulate that there is no alcohol available close to facilities where young people are, whether they go to schools or do sports. So that is one of the helpful policies as well.
So some of those policies are in place to ensure that there isn't an alcohol tavern located within a certain radius of a religious institution, for example, or school. And I think NATA, which is the National Authority on Tobacco and Alcohol, which is the key institution in Sri Lanka that is tasked with prevention, does a massive role in ensuring that things are taken care of. However, over and above prevention, how can we instill in the minds of youth the responsibility that they owe to themselves as well as to society on staying sober and staying sane?
I would love to answer that question, and I will address it. But what is really important to say when we work, what we have learned and when what we understand is that it's really important not to give responsibility to individuals for their behavior, because we can go to schools and parents can talk to their children about the harm caused by alcohol and other substances, but then they leave their homes and they leave their schools, and then they see and experience alcohol being pushed at them and promoted, and it can be as in through, for example, social media, as we have like talked about a little bit. Like, even though if it's forbidden, they still see different commercials. Then it's also the behavior, like, does alcohol need to be part of every party? It doesn't. So, but very many people think so, that it is a natural thing. So we need to really denormalize it and change all the environments, the whole system around young people, and that's the best prevention. Then, of course, we can talk to young people and like raise their awareness, learn them or teach them to appreciate their health and experience or like be aware of the negative effects of alcohol and the real effects of alcohol. Because what also we learn through media mostly is that alcohol is fun and that alcohol is used to get rid of stress, for example, and the opposite is true. So our mind is so strong that we, just because we learned it, we think that we experience it. But if we measure what is happening in human body when alcohol is taken, then people are actually more stressed, because alcohol is a toxic substance. So as soon as it gets into the body needs to start working to get rid of it. So on a subtle level, we are stressed, even though we think that we are right now relaxing. People, for example, sleep much worse after they have used alcohol, but many take alcohol in the evening to sleep better, and they wake up in the morning and they are actually not rested, but they think that they are. But if we measure it, we can really see that their physiological indicators, they show that they have not. So this is the important thing, and we can tell this to young people and they can understand it, and it's really very important that they understand the real effects of alcohol and the effects that are imposed on us through marketing, but they are not true. But at the same time, we really need to create environments that don't push young people into alcohol use.
Christina, is there a best case scenario where we can look at and learn from across the world?
That's a very good question. I think there would be a combination of good scenarios that would create one best case scenario. So there are different countries that implement alcohol policies on different levels, and some countries, for example, have very good policy to regulate marketing or to actually ban marketing. Some countries are better at providing or limiting availability of alcohol, and then another country has just, for example, increased taxes on alcohol, and that's very good because that also makes alcohol less available. And then there are some countries that are very good at talking about alcohol and like not normalizing it everywhere. So I think that there is no one country that would be best at everything, that like an ideal situation. But if we would put them together, and that would be great. And there are many countries to learn from the separate pieces.
Okay, such as?
For example, Norway. Norway has really good digital marketing regulations that protect people, and not only digital marketing, I mean the whole marketing. So in Norway, it's impossible that they cannot show alcohol or market alcohol products, but also alcohol-free products that have the same design as alcohol products. Because in other countries we can see that even the countries that do not allow alcohol advertisement, now when alcohol-free products are coming, they look exactly the same, just that it says alcohol-free, and then it's promoted everywhere. And then the brand and everything, you know, the really the subtle influence in people's minds. So Norway is very good at that. Lithuania has just 3-4 years ago adopted really very good comprehensive policy, also talking about the marketing, but the availability. Young people cannot buy alcohol until they are 20, so the age limit is higher than usual. The usual one is 18. So yeah, Lithuania and Norway are really good examples.
Okay. Christina, you've qualified as a psychologist, which is why I'm going to ask you this next question. Sometimes people are driven towards alcohol because they are unable to cope with themselves, the issues that they face. So there is a disconnect between people and their ability to cope with day-to-day life. And I feel like governments need to focus on this massive issue, which is psychosocial care.
Yeah.
How do you view this?
I agree with you totally. Like if we would turn all the taverns, as you have mentioned, or the bars into places where people can learn more about themselves and learn about like how to cope with their emotions and with stress, that would in a way save the world. I would say, like, we are really learning very little in schools, social skills, and really just skills that will take us through life, different, like how to handle different relations, for example. And I think that it's really missing, and people really need it.
In terms of high levels of psychosocial care, what kind of policies do you think a government can bring in or must bring in?
Government could definitely finance more psychosocial care and make it more available. It's the same also for treatment centers and brief interventions, so people can identify if they have any problem with alcohol early, and then they can address it early. So definitely train more professionals and give them chance to provide their services would be a very good start. And also the school curricula should include this kind of social psychological trainings.
All right. We are in conversation with psychologist Christina Spakova. We're going for a short commercial break. We'll be right back.
එළබෙන සැප්තැම්බර් 8 වනදා ආරම්භන ලෝක කුසලාන රග්බි තරගාවලිය නිල විකාශන අයිතිය සිරස මාධ්‍ය ජාලයට.
So they have gone actually filed the case in the wrong court. So, you know, it should be International Commercial High Court, and they have gone and filed it in a different place.
But the production of coconut was highest ever recorded figure last year, and we produced 3.2 billion nuts.
El Nino is not part of climate change. El Nino is a natural phenomenon. Now, but this natural phenomenon can aggravate the problems of climate change.
IMF has commented Sri Lanka they're having a focused approach because I think we are sort of the best in the class for the IMF.
When it comes to the plantation workers, none of us can be happy about their living condition. For us, they live in appalling social and the economic situation.
Newsline, Monday to Friday at 8:30 p.m. on TV1.
ආසියානු කුසලාන එක්දින ක්‍රිකට් තරගාවලියේ සුපිරි 4 දිනාගේ වටේ ශ්‍රී ලංකාව සහ බංග්ලාදේශය අතර තරගය හෙට දහවල් 2 සිට TV1 ඔස්සේ සජීවීව www.sirisatv.lk වෙබ් අඩවිය ඔස්සේද නැරඹිය හැක.
Welcome back. You're watching the People's Platform. We're in conversation with Kristina Spirkova, alcohol policy advocate. When we talk about alcohol consumption, one of the key areas of discussion is tourism and how alcohol is required to promote tourism. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say that means that the people who think this, they are losing confidence in their own country, because Sri Lanka is beautiful, and the same goes for many other countries that want to promote their country through alcohol and alcohol use. Like there are temples, there is beautiful nature, there is water, like everything is there that tourists want to go for. Tourists rarely think about just going to get drunk or just going for alcohol, and the availability really makes difference. So if tourists come here and they don't see alcohol everywhere, then they will also not need it that much, and they will not need to buy it that much. They will focus on other things that are available. And I think that tourism, especially to country like Sri Lanka, should actually enable people to go a little bit more into themselves and like reflect on their lives. Like we understand the religions here in this country are about that, like Buddhism, for example. So give tourists chance to experience the country from the perspective of the country.
Kristina, we also need to talk about alcohol and taxation. Now, Sri Lanka's alcohol industry products are subject to several types of taxation, including excise taxes, cess levies, and import duty. So there's a high tax percentage. Do you think this is a successful model? What are your thoughts?
It's a very good question. Taxation is very important, and taxation of alcohol is really important, because through taxation the country gets, of course, revenues, but also when the price is set on the right level, then it decreases the alcohol consumption, and with it also alcohol harm. So people simply buy less alcohol, and then they don't carry the consequences of alcohol consumption. Sri Lanka has different kinds of taxes put on alcohol, but honestly, that's why we have also now looked into it and written a report. There is no system about how exactly to tax it. So there is no one formula, there is no mechanism that like every half a year taxes would be reviewed, for example. They are not adjusted to inflation. So there are things to really do and improve when it comes to taxation. And also, just because there are many taxes, it doesn't mean that the final price of the product is protecting public health. So at the moment, the alcohol is cheap. The price could go higher to protect people.
But something else that happens as a result of an increase in the price of alcohol is that people who can't afford it will move to unsafe alternatives or substitutes, which could be more harmful to their health.
Also, very good question. Thank you. It's not really happening. So what is happening that when people consume expensive alcohol, they will go to lower alcohol that is legal, that is not dangerous as the illegal as you have mentioned. But it's not that the consumption of illegal alcohol now goes up. It's not happening. People think so that would be happening, but that is not happening. So, because what also happens is like if you increase price of legal alcohol, then also illegal alcohol, for example, goes up. So the consumption of alcohol, of all alcohol that is being consumed is going down. And what also happens in people's lives when it comes to this price changes is that instead of 3 beers, someone will buy 2 beers. So it's not like they will go from 3 to something illegal produced at home on their own. So they will decrease that. And that really matters, because if someone uses, let's say, beer, right, like once a day, or like, okay, let's say 2 beers per day for a week, then in the end of the week, if we change the price, they will, instead of 14 beers, they will use 7 beers. And that's really a significant change or like impact for people's health, because every amount of alcohol brings more risk, health risk.
If we leave the maneuvering of alcohol policy solely in the hands of policymakers, aren't we going with the assumption that people are unable or too incompetent to manage their own lives or do what's best for them? Shouldn't people be given the agency of making decisions for their own betterment?
Yes, that's also a very nice question. And people still have agency. People are still making decisions. At the same time, we know, and I can also tell you, like really from my personal life, I have seen it that people, even though when they have knowledge, they don't act upon the knowledge if something else is happening, if they are influenced by other factors going on. So, for example, a friend of mine really knows everything about alcohol use and driving, knowledgeable. If we just talk like this, the person would say, no, I would never drive under influence of alcohol. And then there was a situation when in the evening the person used alcohol and anyway drove because had to, or there was no one else to really drive home. So, okay, let's take the risk. So this is like the circumstances very often also make us act against the knowledge that we have. And that's where government, the system that government sets comes in and can protect us. Because people still have agency. Do I want to buy it or do I not want to buy it? But we can help them also a little bit with a little bit higher price or a little bit longer distance to go and buy some product.
Sure. But across weekends, especially, hundreds of thousands of Sri Lankans get fines, are put in jail for driving under the influence of alcohol. The government collects billions of rupees in fines over this very offense. So although people know it's illegal and dangerous and could potentially harm their life and the lives of others, people still engage in drunk driving. So policy has kind of failed us in this respect. How must we combat it?
I think that the enforcement or implementation of policy is important, and you are saying that there are lots of fines collected, most probably not enough. Then, or like I don't know what happens with the people who have been, for example, fined or who have been in jail. Whether they change their behavior, I don't know. So I cannot talk about that. But this that you are talking about, that might be new people. What we know from Australian case is that it's very important that the controls, the police controls like breathalyzers and like stopping cars, has to be very systematic and very frequent, that people learn that it is controlled. So the like random controls only for special holidays, for example, or only on weekends, they are not so helpful, because then people know, people take chances all the time, and they will risk, especially when they use alcohol, they are prone to more risks. So the systematic control when it comes to alcohol and driving under influence of alcohol is really necessary. And in Australia, in a study, they showed that the controls were almost in ratio 1:1. So as many cars, like as many controls, as many cars there are on the roads. Only then you normalize that driving under influence of alcohol is not normal.
Can we also talk about the gender intersectionality in alcohol consumption? It is mainly men who indulge in alcohol consumption. That's also quite interesting.
Yeah, that is true. Like 98% of women in Sri Lanka do not use alcohol. Men also, 40% of men do not use alcohol, and 90-something% of women, which comes, of course, from it's a cultural background and religious background. And on one hand, it really protects women's health. But what is very interesting is that lots of harm from alcohol is carried by women. For example, we can see that women self-harm a lot because of their spouse's alcohol use. And even leads into suicidal behavior, and it's not because of their own alcohol use but because of someone else. And that's a very specific thing for alcohol as a substance, that it harms more people who are not using it than the users themselves.
As well as violence inflicted by alcohol users against their family, their wife, children.
Yeah, that's right. It's also very present. And I am also with my educational background, I'm really interested in gender roles, and I've been looking at this, and we can see the sad trend that alcohol industry is targeting lots of women, because men, especially in Western part of the world, they have saturated the market, so they will not consume more alcohol, otherwise they will die. So then alcohol industry has now started focusing on women, and you can see specific products for women, little bit pink, for example, a little bit smaller bottles. The promotion is a little bit different. And what is also the very sad part, in my opinion, is that they are using gender equality and empowerment of women as a reason to use alcohol, which I think is going really against it, because women carry more harm because of alcohol than men.
And finally, Christina, let's speak about how we can engage youth and youth organizations in prevention and also capacity building.
Young people are incredible force, and all prevention approaches that are trying to tell young people and educate them, and just like from one directional lectures about harms, that doesn't work, and it's waste of young people's potential. But the prevention programs that actually activate young people in, for example, exposing alcohol industry, or in discussing the real effects of alcohol and the myths that are around alcohol, all that really helps empower young people. And just today I have met a Youth Action Network that is run by Alcohol and Drug Information Center. Several young people from different parts of Sri Lanka. Amazing, like they have telling me their stories, how being the part of the network, how it changed their life, how they found self-confidence, how they found friends, support, because they were engaging in social issues together with other young people and learn from each other, and really felt empowered. It was really beautiful to see them, and I think that's the best prevention. Like they build their own network, they build their own understanding, and all the things that the marketing is telling us, the friendships and getting rid of stress, for example, all those things they actually get through their social contacts and through doing things together. So I think that's the best way of prevention.
In terms of the role of the state in alcohol prevention, it is mandatory that it engages with other key stakeholders as well as regional and international bodies. So how must that be done?
when it comes to states' responsibility, it's really the policies. That's the main. And of course, they need to take care of the policies in their own country and then the laws, of course, to implement the policies. But then also countries cooperate and they can learn from each other. We have started this conversation like where are the good policies. I mentioned Lithuania, Norway, of course Thailand has really great policy and approach to prevention. So I think it is governments and states' responsibility to see what other countries are doing and where they are succeeding. And then together they also need to have some standards and demands on the global level, because we all really influence each other. Sri Lanka doesn't have borders, but many other countries really do. And then sometimes it really doesn't help that one country has good policies if the neighboring country has the opposite. So that's the responsibility inwards, and also cooperate with others and mostly learn from each other.
The alcohol industry is like a mafia. It's quite powerful, and it is a dominant lobby group,
and a global one.
Exactly. So it's not the easiest thing to go against such a dominant figure. So how can a government, how can a country successfully meet this challenge?
Yeah, if government prioritizes people's health over the profits that the industry makes, the government has all the answers, because government knows, and there is lots of evidence about what works when it comes to prevention, and the government has the power to implement it. If they don't give into industry influence. And then their government needs also evidence, and the evidence is being produced. Like you are holding some reports, and then there are new reports coming showing that if governments invest in effective prevention measures or solutions, they win. Like everyone wins. They will win economically, people will be healthier, the well-being will improve. So all the benefits that they are now thinking that they would be losing from losing the relation with the industry, they are not there. Like they will be replaced, and also really on a much higher level than what is right now. So it's really just not accepting the current status quo, but have an ambition to imagine the society where it can work better, and where people actually feel much better than right now.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much, Kristina Spokova. Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives. It was lovely having you on tonight's show.
Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you for watching us. We'll see you again on Tuesday with the Sinhala edition of the program. Have a safe weekend. Good night.